Hi everyone, welcome back to Coffee Books and Rain. I have my coffee. I have an overcast day, which is not really giving rain vibes, but we do have books, and we are bringing to you the Kensington Chronicles, which is kind of a fun book. It felt like four little mini books, like four little not four, probably like 7 or 8 little novellas all tied into one like book. And we'll get into that in a minute, but you'll see I have a little monster on here because I realized when I re-angled my camera, like the bright red on the microphone was really bright and was shining crazily. So you'll see he's kind of glowing, but I got a little monster there. So if he falls off, I apologize. You will be blinded by the red light specials. Anyway, we are repping the Scarlet Witch, as today was officially Halloween and I just did not completely change out of my costume. Honestly, it took me a lot of time to put this wig on and I just was like, I will deal with it later. Also, the red contacts, because they are prescription and they pretty comfortable, I can see really well. So I made sure that I got my prescription, I checked the box on my prescription, and really pretty comfortable. So I'm actually pleasantly surprised. I'll probably get more from this company. But anyway, the only thing is I couldn't get the prescription colored contacts with the stigmatism. But that is fine. It just means that lights kind of look sparkly to me, because that's just what lights do when I have astigmatism in my eyes and I don't have contacts that correct it. Well, we're not here to talk about my eye problems. We are here to talk about the Kensington Chronicles, and it is by Arietta Charles. And this book was actually really cute. It was not very long. It's about 200 pages. I want to say maybe even 175 in my Kindle. So really not too much. I may have had the font size kind of small, which may have taken a page or two out. But this book releases November 1st, which I think is the day that I will be releasing this episode. And I have also changed my background just a little bit. There are a couple little spooky things over here, a couple little fall related things here. I've changed up my background a little bit, so you guys will see some of that changed as well. I will switch over a little bit to some Christmas towards the middle of November, but as of right now, kind of keeping it relaxed. And this shelf has my water on it right now, but I will be stuffing more books in there. I did actually place a thrift books order the other day, so I'm expecting about 12 more books to be coming in to complete a couple of collections that I've been wanting to complete. But let's dive into the Kensington Chronicles. So, meet Kensington Shaw, a purveyor of magical objects with bad luck of stumbling over the dead. As a purveyor of magical objects, she sets her own hours, makes her own money, and makes her own rules in the Prohibition-era Chicago. However, it isn't all roses. She soon starts to find trouble wherever she goes, including in the underground, a magical version of Chicago not many know is right under their feet. So, and when I said this book feels like several books in one, it's because it feels like each of the I don't even know if they're each chapters or they feel like little individual novellas. There's Death Dance, Darkness Becomes You, Interlude with Death, A Wild Death, A Deadly Garden Party, Underground Ghosts, and the like. I actually think that might be kind of encompassing. So I used to live in Chicago, which was one of the reasons that I picked this book up, because I love Prohibition era Chicago kind of theming. I love the idea that Chicago has its own level of magic. One of my favorite book series is called The Dresden Files, which kind of follows this more or less modern day wizard in Chicago, where technology doesn't work very well and he has to drive like a beat up VW bug, and he has this like very large dog called Mouse, and all these fun things. But I think that was, and then again, I used to live there, so I kind of have this love of Chicago. So when I ran across this book, kind of found out where a lot of the atmosphere was with regards to it. It has an Art Deco vibe cover, which, as you can kind of tell, has some Art Deco. The city itself is rife with beautiful Art Deco vibe architecture. You can walk around and just see some gorgeous, gorgeous architecture. So highly recommend if that's something you're into. But let's dive into this book just a little bit. We start with Kensington, Kinsey, to her friends, and she's kind of a little bit of a mystery at first, because she's got these little vials of potion in her bag, and she's at this club, and she's dancing the night away at a club, and she starts dancing with one of her old friend Freddie, and Freddie's like, oh, well, you know, I'd love to call on you, and she's like, oh yeah, that would be lovely, and she's like, I think he's asking me out, that would be great. Well, she's already got plenty of money on her own, so even though she gets a little bit of an allowance from her dad doesn't know how profitable her own personal business has been and what sort of things she already has acquired with her own kind of money. So she's a fairly well-to-do independent woman who does a little bit of magic making on the side when it comes to potions and magical objects, and she's also trained a little bit, we find out in future stories along the way, in a little bit of witchcraft as well. And so she's not like in the market for a husband. If one comes along, she'll probably be like, okay, this would be nice. But Freddie, as they're dancing and having a really lovely time, he collapses on the dance floor. And it's very interesting because at first she really seems like she's like, oh, I think he might like me. I think, yeah, I'd love to go out with you, Freddie. And then all of a sudden he collapses and looks like he's pretty much deceased. And she doesn't really like she kind of mourns his loss, but it's not like, she's kind of like, okay. Like, dang it. Like, I think I would be a little more traumatized than that. But along comes Detective Kane, and he is pretty much the one who shows up through all the rest of the stories. I don't want to say is her partner, but Kensington has made kind of this sort of name for herself for being in... She's kind of got a little bit of a private eye air about her. I don't think she's officially a private eye, but I think she runs in some of those circles, and she always tends to be in the wrong place at the right time, where she runs across dead bodies almost too frequently. So the police are they're not suspicious of her, they just wonder how she does it, because they feel confident she's not the one creating these bodies. And so now Kensington and Detective Kane have to look into what has caused Freddie's demise, as well as some other people on the dance floor's demise, because it wasn't just Freddie who kind of fell out on the dance floor. So that's where kind of the ball gets rolling. And then we kind of go into a couple more stories where we kind of go into the underground. There's a little bit more mafia type situations. If you know anything about Chicago, there's like ties to that sort of thing. If you know anything about Chicago, there is always this hush-hush sort of thing about there being like an underground Chicago. Chicago supposedly burned several times, and the newer and newer versions of Chicago would always be built upon the older versions of Chicago. So it would always be built up on another level of Chicago, and it would just kind of create this underground layer of Chicago. And so it kind of created that sort of mysterious air about it, that there would be these areas you could go into where the tunnels would keep going and you could get into the underground, so to speak. Now, I know nothing about that. I just know that there some of the subways run underground, and I feel like the theory is sound. I just don't know anything about that. I wasn't there that long to know anything about that, but I love the theory behind that. Now the one where Interlude with Death, which I believe is story number 3. Kensington is coming home, and it says New Year's Eve. Kinsey staying home because her father's unusual party has been canceled at the last minute. Usual party has been canceled at the last minute when the Angel of Death comes calling, and it's very interesting because apparently Kinsey and this Angel of Death have a future at some point together, and it's very tense, and there's like a lot of romantic tension involved, but he tells her that it's like really it's too soon for them to be together, but he does give her this challenge to find these stones that are scattered around, that once they're all together he'll be able to kind of reassemble his sister. So that's something that she has been tasked by the Angel of Death to do while she's on the earth. And he said that when he comes for her, that he'll give her the choice of he can take her and she can, you know, move on to the afterlife, or she can come with him. So kind of like a little romantic tension going on, a lot of romantic tension, but there's also some romantic tension with her and Detective Kane as well. And that's very interesting because I don't want to give that secret away. But each of these stories, in a lot of different ways, feels kind of like I said, kind of feels novella-ish, or kind of feels like they were released individually and then kind of put together in this book. Now, I don't know too much about that. I don't know too much about how Arietta Charles wrote it with regards to this particular formatting, but I found that it was really fun. I think each of the stories is linked together, but they don't rely heavily on each other. Like, that's why I call them more novellas, because I think each story could be kind of complete in itself, but they kind of link to each other. They're not really chapters where you're left with a cliffhanger and then it picks up in the next one. But overall, I was pretty pleased with it. As someone else says, they're inventive and well-paced. I would actually like to see more. I would love more stories, or even like a full fleshed out novel of just like a Kensington novel going on. But maybe the author is not ready to write that novel yet. I'm not sure. But I really had a good time with it. I like the atmosphere of like that 1920s-esque sort of vibe. Sorry, throat's a little dry. And it seems as though it's getting pretty well received as well. It's a fun book, kind of Sherlock and Watson, but it's more like Kensington is like the Sherlock, because she's very, very smart. She does have quite a lot of intelligence, but it's in a little bit of a different way, because she's sassy and witty, and I think Detective Kane, it's kind of Grumpy Sunshine too, a little bit. Like, I'm just trying to think of the tropes that it falls into, and there are a couple, because you have this sleuthing duo, and she's not really supposed to be part of these cases. Like, she's truly not officially part of these cases. But of course, you've got Detective Kane, who, because she stumbled along into it, she's kind of made herself part of the cases. And if he wants to kind of keep getting all of the information that she keeps getting, and all the like all the knowledge that she has regarding people's personal lives, the social knowledge that she has, then he'll kind of let her tag along. But yeah, I like it. I think it's fun, and I give it would probably give it a little. Would I give it 4.5 stars? I would probably give it like a 4.25 stars. That's probably where I would give it, but I'd love to see more. I'd love to get more stories and see like where we go from here. But with all of that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you'll like and subscribe if you have not already. I am still a growing channel and we are working our way towards 200 subscribers, and it is so very exciting. So thank you so much. I will see you soon, and I will see you guys on the next page. Have a great one.